There's a lot that goes into facilitating it, making it happen. And also, when you try to scale it to a legitimate business, there's a lot that goes into learning how to actually close the transaction. And the most important part of that is the people you work with.
Best ever listeners, do you want to make more money on your real estate projects? Well, I'm guessing that I'm hearing you say, oh yeah, baby. Well, guess what, my friends? Today's best ever sponsor, Fund That Flip, is working with one of our previous best ever guests who has one of the most popular episodes, Jay Scott. If you aren't familiar with this episode, then go check that out, episode 217. If you are, because you're a loyal best ever listener, then you know that he knows how the heck to both analyze deals, especially flips, how to optimize the profits on those flips, and how to look at the market. Because of that, Fund That Flip, today's sponsor, has worked with him and put together a guide that is the 7 tips to increase your real estate profits in today's market. Go check that out. Go get that guide. I've read through it myself. I've learned a lot of things from it, from how to analyze the market cycles, as well as how to optimize profits and not lose money or mitigate your risk for losing money on your deals. Go check it out. fundthatflip.com/best ever. That's fundthatflip.com/best ever. You're going to learn the tools to better understand your local market and position your business for success. You're going to know how to analyze the real estate cycle and how to use short-term investing to capitalize on the market cycle, and 7 concrete actionable tips to make more money on your deals. fundthatflip.com/best ever. Best ever listeners, hello, how you doing? Welcome to the best real estate investing advice ever show. I'm Joe Fairless. This is a show where we cut out the fluffy stuff. We don't talk about it. We only talk about the best advice that moves your business forward. And actually, guess what you're listening to? You're listening to the world's longest running daily real estate investing podcast. That's right. Here we go. And we got another one coming at you. It's going to be a great episode. How you doing, RJ Bates III?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing really well, and nice to have you on the show. A little bit about RJ. He's the founder and CEO of Titanium Investments. He has a focus on wholesaling. He's been doing it for 4 years and has done over 100 transactions. He's based in Cowtown, and if you don't know what Cowtown is, then it's Fort Worth, Texas, my old stomping ground where I grew up. And you can say hi to him at his website, titaniumprops.com. With that being said, RJ, you want to give the best ever listeners a little bit more about your background and what you're focused on?
Absolutely. I started off in construction and was remodeling and doing the flips for the investors. And I quickly learned that I was on the wrong side of the game. I wanted a better life for my family and for myself, and learned from some great mentors on how to get into investing myself. And from there, turned my construction business into a wholesaling business. And we've had extreme success ever since January 1st of 2015. We've maintained our sole focus on real estate investing, and in that time frame, that's where we've done over 90% of those transactions is since 2015. So right now we're mainly focused on wholesaling and networking and building relationships that way.
Cool. So extreme success, as you put it, since January 2015. How many deals have you done since then, and what's the average profit margin on each deal?
In the past 12 months, we've done over 70 transactions, and average profit margin for us would probably be right around $10,000 to $12,000.
So that's $840,000 over the last 12 months. Does that factor in the expenses to get a deal done, or is that net of all expenses?
That is pure profit on top of the expenses.
Got it. So profit after all the expenses are taken into
Yes.
account. Cool.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so $840,000 profit in the last 12 months. What's the key?
Building relationships and maintaining your integrity, especially on the wholesale side of things, making sure that you don't put your integrity at risk over one deal. So many times, our investors that work with us rely on us to have accurate numbers, whether it be the ARV, rehab estimates, how we're pulling comps. They trust us. A lot of our clients are out of state. The fact that I've lived in Dallas Fort Worth my whole life has helped our company enormously because we know the areas, we know the neighborhoods and the subdivisions and where to invest and where not to invest. And so the most important part for us has been keeping our integrity and building a network of investors that trust us because time and time again, we've been accurate with our numbers.
What's something that, from a accuracy standpoint with numbers, what's your process? How do you go about making sure that those numbers are as accurate as possible?
Well, one of the things that we do that's a little bit different than most investors is we have one real estate agent that we work with compared to having a lot. So we have built a very close knit relationship with our real estate investor and our agent. And then more than having just an agent, she's almost like a partner with Titanium Investments. And that has helped us because we can make sure that comps are pulled the same way every time. We have systemized it to where we're staying within a certain percentage of the square footage. We're not crossing major thoroughfares. We're not going back past 90 days on sold comps. Things like that have maintained accuracy. And then as far as the rehab estimates go, building relationships with contractors and making sure that we understand where their numbers are coming from. Obviously, my background being in construction has helped us in the fact that rehab numbers are accurate. So for me, it everything goes back to building relationships and maintaining integrity in that relationship across the board, whether it be real estate agent or contractor or title company or hard money lender. It's all about just establishing a relationship and making sure that those numbers are always accurate.
Mm-hmm. With the real estate agent that you work with, how do you compensate her?
Well, obviously, whenever we're purchasing the properties, if there is anything on the MLS, she gets a 3% up front. If it's an off market deal, a lot of times we will build in her compensation with our purchase and we won't put the burden on the seller. We take on that burden as well. Wholesaling, we do majority of our wholesale deals are double closes. So we also compensate her on the second close as well as the first close. So Jenna is our real estate agent. She is fairly compensated on each deal. And like I said, we treat her more like a partner than we do a real estate agent. So a lot of times she's getting compensated just as fairly as, say, I would be as the wholesaler or Titanium is being compensated.
Why are the majority of your deals a double close?
Well, we do that because early on, we felt like we were losing out on deals when we were trying to do assignments. And anytime I was notifying somebody that there was an assignment or that we were going to assign the contract, it felt like it could hinder us from getting the contract if it was a highly competitive area, which mainly anywhere in Dallas Fort Worth is highly competitive at this time. And I was able to find title company that allows us to do double closes. I was able to find transactional funds that are not cost prohibitive to us, and a real estate agent that understood how to facilitate a double close transaction. I also like the fact that whether I'm making $1 or $100,000, my end investor does not know how much money Titanium Investments is making.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that because it really shouldn't matter. A deal is a deal, however we present it to you. The numbers shouldn't matter how much I'm taking home. And that's never an issue with our investors because they don't know what our end profit is.
Mm-hmm. For the best ever listeners who have never done a double close and aren't familiar with it, can you explain what that is?
Absolutely. To make it very simple, we purchase the property, and within the same day or 3 days, we close it to our end investor. Depending on title company and the state that you're in, sometimes you will have to take out a transactional loan and actually purchase it. There are some areas that will allow you to do what's called a pass through, which is the end investor's funds actually fund my purchase. So it is essentially I am buying the house and selling it within a 30-minute time lapse, and I actually bring $0 to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that has allowed us to do some very large properties. We have actually wholesaled all the way up to the $1 million mark using the pass through, where we've literally brought nothing to the table besides earnest money and option fee. So the pass through is a very valuable tool and a way to facilitate a transaction if you have built up a relationship with a title company that will allow it, with an attorney that will allow it. And a lot of that just goes back to, again, your integrity, your ability to actually close transactions. I couldn't walk into the title company on day one and ask them to allow me to do a pass through because there's a lot of liability that goes through it. But after many, many transactions, that was something that we were able to agree to do to allow us to facilitate more transactions together.
Have you only done deals in Texas?
No, we've done several deals in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which Tulsa is a whole different breed of animal as far as real estate transactions. They're still an abstract state. And so that is one of the states would not allow a pass through. You have to take out a transactional loan on that. It's funny that you bring that up because as you called me, I was just finishing closing a deal in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it is different in each market. We have recently broadened out to Washington State and also Arizona, and each one of those states have their own different little
nuances.
Yeah, I guess that's the best word, that they have about them. That
issues.
Yeah, little hurdles that you have to overcome to be able to facilitate a wholesale deal. I will definitely say it's not as easy as some people make it out to be, where you go find a deal and it just automatically closes. There's a lot that goes into facilitating it, making it happen, and also when you try to scale it to a legitimate business, there's a lot that goes into learning how to actually close the transaction. And the most important part of that is the people you work with. I truly believe I have one of the best escrow officers here in Dallas and one of the best real estate agents that has allowed Titanium to grow to the levels that it is today.
When you go to a new state like Washington State, for example, how do you know if it's going to be a transactional loan that's required or if you can do a pass through? Where do you go to find that?
The title company, obviously the first thing that we have to find is the real estate agent that we're going to rely on there. And we're trying to use it to where Jenna is still our real estate agent in-house, but we also have the local agent in the market that knows the area, knows the hot spots, and knows how transactions are facilitated. And so the first thing we did is we met a real estate agent that we liked. We interviewed. We all agreed that she could be a part of our team. And then from there, we asked, okay, let's interview 3 to 4 title companies. And it's the same thing. On my end, on closing transactions, the 2 most important people that I deal with are my real estate agent and the escrow officer. And as far as knowing whether a transactional loan is required or not, the title company is the person to ask to make sure that they clearly understand what we're trying to accomplish and whether or not a transactional loan is required or not.
When you need a transactional loan, where do you go and what's it cost you?
Well, hard money lenders are the easiest place to get them, and it can range anywhere between 0.5% all the way up to 2 or 3%, depending on how much is required to close. Some hard money lenders will have a scaled system on how much interest they're going to charge depending on how much they're actually loaning out. So they'll
Mm-hmm.
charge you less for less than 100,000, but much more for anything above 300,000. So,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some nationwide companies that will charge just a flat fee of like 1%.
Have you used any nationwide company?
Yeah, I actually just used one on the Tulsa transaction that we just closed, and they charged 1%, and it was a seamless transaction. There was no issues there on their end.
Who'd you use?
Insider's cash.
Cool. That's interesting. So you also talked about you were interviewing an agent. I mean, you're in Fort Worth, Texas. You're looking at Washington State in this example, and you're interviewing agents. How did you find the person that you ended up going with?
We actually put that in Jenna's hands. We asked her to reach out to her network of realtors that she's in through social media. So Facebook was the easiest way for us to meet people. She went on to large nationwide realtor groups and said, here is what I've been able to do in the past 12 months with Titanium Investments. Anybody with experience in Seattle, Washington, with working with investors, please reach out to me. And from there, we were able to easily acquire 15 to 20 inquiries from realtors up in the Seattle and Phoenix markets. They were coming to us with, this is how many investment deals I've done. This is what I'm looking for. This is where I want to go with my career. And then from there, we were able to weed them out to only interviewing 3 to 4.
Mm-hmm. How did you pick those markets?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the demand from our buyers. A lot of our investors are based out of state, California, New York, Boston, Florida, and they want to invest into certain markets. And so we had a lot of demand from those specific markets. Portland and Baltimore were two other markets that we very heavily considered and probably will eventually be in. But for us, it was about establishing the relationships. We felt most comfortable with the title companies and the real estate agents in Phoenix and Seattle. Specifically, Seattle is what got us most excited. Now, there's definitely hurdles in us trying to expand to Seattle. It's extremely hot right now and very difficult to acquire properties. And so there's a huge demand for wholesalers in that area to acquire properties off market in order for our buyers to get in that new market. You know, they want to be in Seattle because of how hot it is. So that is a great area for us to be in if we can acquire properties.
Do you ever come across a deal that's not in a big market, say it's in a pretty small town in a state that you don't have a team set up and still pursue that, meaning get it under contract and then do the double close?
Well, I've had a couple come across, one in Mississippi. We had one that was literally in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee. I'm never going to be the type that immediately says no to an opportunity. So, yes, we will always analyze it. We'll always try to figure out a way to make the deal work if we can. Sometimes it's so difficult, it's so remote, or we're so not knowledgeable about the area, like Tennessee and being in the mountains. There really wasn't a strategy that we could take on that property. But we've yet to just get something that comes across our table in a different state. Now, here in Texas, we're about to do our first transaction in Austin. So that's going to be fun. We've done a transaction in San Antonio, which those cities are 3 and 4 hours away from Dallas Fort Worth. So those were a little bit more remote, difficult transactions, relying on other people to give us feedback about the property. And make sure we fully understand what it was we were acquiring and then selling. So that's probably the closest we've been to just getting a property outside of a market that we were fully set up in.
Did you end up closing on the Mississippi property?
No, we would have pursued it, but the numbers were just not there. I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't a deal.
Got it. But you would have investors that, if the numbers were there, that would be able to make it happen.
Just in Mississippi specifically, yeah, but that's kind of a family thing. My sister used to live in Biloxi, Mississippi, so that would have just been a fluke deal that I would have had a cash buyer there. I don't think I have too many buyers in Mississippi, but
Yep.
in that case, I do have a cash buyer down there.
Well, RJ, what's your best real estate investing advice ever?
Don't wait. So many people that I hear, they say, I want to get into real estate investing. It's what I'm going to do. There's no reason to wait. You started off by saying that I have 4 years experience, but I didn't give in until January of 2015. I had my blood, sweat, and tears into my construction business, and I didn't want to let go of that because I thought that that was something that I should be proud of and hold on to. And I wish I would have not waited those couple of years and just gone full-fledged into real estate investing. It's changed my life. It's changed my partner's life. It's changed Jenna's life. We have financial freedom now. We have something that we feel like we're building for our family. And as far as real estate investing goes, don't be ashamed of doing wholesaling. So many people, they feel like it's not a good industry or there's something shady about it. There's not. You're helping a lot of investors, and there's definitely a need for it out there. And it allows people to get into real estate investing, which clearly we both feel like is the best industry to be in.
You ready for the best ever lightning round?
I am.
All right. First, a quick word from our best ever partners. Go check out Mass Venture, which is Texas's first approved equity crowdfunding platform, which means that all Texas residents can now invest in local real estate projects. All Texas residents can now invest in real estate projects. That's a big distinction. Usually it's just accredited investors. Nathan Roach, he's been a guest on the show, episode 225. Go listen to that if you want to learn more about his business as well as hear his best ever advice. And go to Mass Venture, MASSVENTURE, to check out their company. Best ever book you've read?
Animal Farm. That's all I have.
That's a great book. Best ever personal growth experience, and what'd you learn from it?
We're going to have to go with becoming a real estate investor. I learned to believe in myself and not doubt that I could go to the next level. I came from a family of entrepreneurs, so I knew I could do that, and I already had. But now I am confident in our ability to do anything with Titanium Investments.
Best ever deal you've done?
Well, the best ever deal I did was a property on Swiss Avenue here in Dallas. And the reason why is because we had to extend multiple times due to unforeseen hard money lending issues. And it got so tense that I ended up having to personally call the listing agent. And from that tense conversation, I now have a personal relationship with that listing agent, and she has brought me multiple off-market deals because she respects our company.
It's the best ever way you like to give back?
Our entire company has very close ties to childhood cancer. It has personally hit my family, and so anytime we have the ability to give back, it is to childhood cancer. Because of my personal story to the family member who had it, we've learned how little research and money is given to childhood cancer. So any chance we have to give back to it, Titanium Investments and all the personal people in the company do give back to childhood cancer research.
What's the biggest mistake you've made in real estate?
The San Antonio property has to be the biggest mistake, and the reason why is because we did not set up our team like we did in all of the other markets as well as we did in San Antonio. We kind of flew by the seat of our pants and thought that we could accomplish something without doing our due diligence up front. And I ended up being a 50-50 partner on that property, and it ended up going well over budget. And that was a mistake, but also a blessing, because it taught us how to set up in Tulsa, in Seattle, in Phoenix, because we didn't do it right in San Antonio. So the one thing that we did was we taught ourselves not to make the same mistakes that we made in San Antonio.
Best ever way the best ever listeners can reach you.
I am the guy that has his phone in his hand all day, anytime. You can call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll answer the phone. So call me, 817-915-6860. Man, I hope I don't get a million phone calls from that.
Careful what you ask for.
I know, right? But you can reach me that way. It's the best way to reach me, and I will return any and all phone calls I receive.
Well, RJ, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I'm really glad that we got you on the show, because you walked us through how you've made $840,000 in the last 12 months doing wholesaling, averaging $12,000 profit per deal, doing about 70 deals. And then your double close approach that you like to do, where you purchase within the same day or up to 3 days, depending on where you're doing the transaction, or the pass-through method, again, depending on where you do the transaction, and getting into details on that too, and the importance of the team members that you surround yourself with, and also the transactional lenders that you work with, the different quotes that you get from 0.5% to 2 to 3%. And just getting into details on it. We got some good info, and I'm really grateful that that was the case. So thanks a lot for being on the show. Hope you have a best ever day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me. Talk to you soon.
Go check out Mass Venture, which is Texas's first approved equity crowdfunding platform, which means that all Texas residents can now invest in local real estate projects. All Texas residents can now invest in real estate projects. That's a big distinction. Usually it's just accredited investors. Nathan Roach, he's been a guest on the show, episode 225. Go listen to that if you want to learn more about his business, as well as hear his best ever advice. And go to Mass Venture, MASSVENTURE, to check out their company.